Why being middle class feels poor. For decades, being middle class meant stability. You had a decent job, a comfortable home, maybe a car, and enough money left over to save. You weren't rich, but you weren't struggling either. The middle class was supposed to be the safe zone. But today, something feels different. More and more people who consider themselves middle class say they feel broke. They earn decent salaries, they live normal lives, and yet every month feels tight. Savings don't grow, expenses keep rising, and financial security feels further away. So, what changed? Why does being middle class suddenly feel like being poor? The first reason is simple: the cost of living has risen faster than middle class income. Housing, healthcare, education, transportation, and food have all increased dramatically over time, but middle class wages didn't rise at the same pace. This creates a gap. Even if your salary increased, your expenses increased more. And that means your purchasing power quietly shrinks. You might be earning more money than ever before, but that money buys less. And that's the core of the problem. The second reason is housing. Housing used to be manageable for middle class households. One income could often support a home. Today, that's much harder. Home prices have surged in many cities. Rent has climbed steadily. Mortgage rates have increased. Now, housing alone can take up a huge portion of income. For many middle class families, housing takes 30 to 40% of earnings, in some cases, even more. And when your biggest expense grows, everything else becomes tighter. There's less room for savings, less room for emergencies, less room for comfort. So even with a decent income, you feel stretched. Another reason is fixed costs. Middle class households often have more fixed expenses than lower income households. Mortgage payments, insurance, car payments, childcare, subscriptions, and utilities. These costs are hard to reduce. You can't easily move. You can't stop paying insurance. You can't cancel childcare. So when prices rise, your flexibility disappears. And when flexibility disappears, financial pressure increases. The third reason is lifestyle expectations. Being middle class comes with certain expectations: a safe neighborhood, reliable car, good schools, healthcare, vacations, retirement savings. These aren't luxury goals. They're considered normal middle class standards. But maintaining those standards is getting more expensive. So middle class households try to maintain their lifestyle, but the cost of maintaining it keeps rising. And that creates stress. You're not overspending, you're just trying to live a normal life. But normal is getting expensive. Another reason is debt. Many middle class households rely on debt to maintain stability. Mortgage debt, student loans, car loans, credit cards. Debt isn't always bad, but it reduces financial breathing room. Monthly payments become locked in. And when income stays the same but debt payments remain fixed, everything else gets tighter. So even if you earn a good salary, much of it is already committed. That makes you feel poorer than your income suggests. There's also inflation. Inflation hits middle class households differently because they spend across many categories. They pay for housing, food, transportation, education, and healthcare. When all of those rise together, the pressure compounds. Lower income households may receive support. Higher income households may absorb the increase, but the middle class sits in between. They don't qualify for assistance, but they also don't have enough buffer. So they feel the squeeze the most. This is sometimes called the middle class squeeze. Too rich for help, too stretched to feel comfortable. Another factor is childcare. Childcare costs have increased dramatically. For many middle class families, childcare can rival rent. And this creates a strange situation. Both parents work, but much of one income goes directly to childcare. So household income looks high on paper, but available money feels limited, and that adds to the feeling of being financially stuck. Healthcare is another major factor. Healthcare costs have risen steadily. Insurance premiums, deductibles, and out of pocket costs all increased. Middle class households often have insurance, but that doesn't mean healthcare is affordable. Unexpected medical bills can still be large, and that creates uncertainty. Even if you're financially stable, one medical emergency can disrupt everything. That risk makes people feel less secure. Education costs also play a role. College tuition increased significantly over time. Many middle class families save for education or pay student loans. These long term costs reduce disposable income. And because they last for years, the pressure continues. Another reason the middle class feels poorer is comparison. People don't measure wealth in isolation, they compare themselves to others. Social media amplifies this. You see people traveling, buying homes, upgrading lifestyles. Even if those images aren't fully accurate, they shape perception. So middle class life feels smaller compared to what you see. That creates a psychological effect. You feel behind, even if you're doing fine. Another important factor is savings. The middle class used to save regularly. Today, many households struggle to save consistently. Emergency funds shrink. Retirement contributions feel harder, and without savings, financial security disappears. You may not be poor, but you feel vulnerable, and vulnerability feels similar to being broke. Another reason is inflation in essentials. Middle class households spend heavily on essentials. Groceries, utilities, transportation, and insurance all increased. These aren't optional. So when they rise, budgets tighten immediately. There's no easy adjustment. You can delay luxury purchases, but you can't delay rent. You can reduce entertainment, but you still need food. So middle class households feel inflation constantly. There's also wage stagnation. While some salaries increased, many middle class wages remained relatively flat after adjusting for inflation. That means productivity increased, but purchasing power didn't grow much, and over time, that erodes comfort. What used to feel manageable now feels tight. Another factor is taxes. Middle class households often pay a significant share of taxes. They earn enough to be taxed, but not enough to easily absorb it. Taxes reduce take-home income, and when combined with rising expenses, net income feels smaller. This adds to the perception of being stretched. There's also the cost of convenience. Modern life includes subscriptions, delivery services, digital platforms, and recurring costs. These are small individually, but together they add up. Streaming services, cloud storage, apps, memberships, and fees. These didn't exist decades ago. Now they're part of normal life, and they quietly increase monthly spending. Another factor is dual income dependency. Many middle-class households rely on two incomes. This increases risk. If one income disappears, the household struggles immediately. This creates pressure. You're stable only as long as everything goes right. That fragility contributes to the feeling of being financially insecure. There's also asset inflation. Homes, stocks, and investments increased in value, but that doesn't always help the middle class. If you already own assets, you benefit. If you're trying to buy, prices become harder. So entering the middle class lifestyle becomes more expensive. You need more income just to reach the same level. This shifts the definition of middle class upward, and many people feel left behind. Another reason is shrinking financial margin. Middle class households often have little left over after expenses. Not enough to feel comfortable, not enough to feel safe. This narrow margin creates constant stress. Even small price increases matter. Even small unexpected costs disrupt plans. That's why middle class can feel poor, not because income is low, but because expenses are high and flexibility is limited. There's also the psychological aspect. Middle class used to mean progress. Today, it often means maintenance. You're not moving forward. You're just trying to keep up. And that changes how people feel. Progress feels motivating. Maintenance feels exhausting. Finally, there's uncertainty. The future feels less predictable. Housing costs may rise. Education costs may rise. Healthcare costs may rise. Income may not. That uncertainty creates anxiety. Even if you're stable today, tomorrow feels uncertain. And that's why being middle class feels poor. It's not just about income, it's about rising costs, shrinking margins, higher expectations, and lower security. The middle class still exists, but the comfort that once defined it is getting harder to maintain. And when comfort disappears, the middle class starts to feel poor. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing for more content about money, economics, and how modern life is changing. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.